challenging at the last part of this race, but Peter Budge from Box Hill will take this. Good run from Kublai Khan.
Around a bit, and then the more important thing is the closer to the ground, the number is they keep you grounded. They're what's going to last longer.
Did you know? School Sport Victoria offers 650,000 sporting opportunities in 31 different sports at 10,700 events across the state every single year. That's a lot of kids playing sport. And for over 25 years, the Victorian School Sports Awards have recognised more than 1,500 students, teachers and volunteers for excellence and outstanding contribution to school sport. Now that's a champion effort.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Ask SSV show. How are you, Gulcan?
I'm very good, Rath. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. And thanks for joining us on this show. We've got a very jam-packed show today, and I'm sure we're going to draw a lot out of you. You're a former Melbourne Victory player and you now work for Victory, hence the clothing, and I'm matching today with the Melbourne Victory shirt on as well. You've got so many achievements that I just want to really quickly highlight. You're not the kind to self-promote, but let's talk about you at the moment. Melbourne Victory's highest capped player in the W-League, which is fantastic. B licensed coach, played for the Turkish national team, hence your heritage, and working at Melbourne Victory in the community football and community football and diversity manager, and also a double degree in exercise science and sport and rec management. You have filled quite a lot into your very short life. How have you done all that?
It's, in all honesty, I don't know. To be honest, I think if I didn't have the support of great teachers, great coaches, family and friends, I think definitely would not have been possible. So I've had a really great support system along the way that's been very lenient with me and also very supportive. So that's how I think I've achieved it.
Brilliant. Now, just going back to your time at Melbourne Victory, it was a number of years, over a number of years that you played for Victory. Is there a fond memory of that? Is there one that pops up? It doesn't even need to be a game that you played in, but is there a fond memory that you reflect back on?
I think the toughest one was the first 2 seasons. So the first 2 seasons I was signed at Victory, I actually didn't get selected for any games. So
Wow.
training, 5 to 6 times a week, not making the team sheet for 2 straight years after training as much as everyone else. It was pretty difficult. Before I played for the club, I was always a very passionate fan. So just getting that contract and getting the jersey was really rewarding for me. And when I did eventually get that opportunity to play, it's an experience and a feeling that I wouldn't take back for anything. So those 2 years of hard work leading up were really well worth it.
Yes, certainly. And how many years did you end up sticking with Victory in the end?
So 9 years.
9 years. So 2 years not selected, and then 7 years where you were selected, and you then became, like I talked about, the highest cap player. That's pretty amazing. Just, we'll delve into this a lot deeper in the show, but how was it to stay focused for 2 years without being selected? That's pretty tough.
Yeah, there were times where, all you want to do is give up. You kind of think, am I ever going to be good enough? But I was really lucky that my teammates, the environment itself, even though I wasn't playing, the professionalism and the environment that training was producing was something that I wanted to be a part of. So I knew that if I kept going, I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I'm really happy that I kept going, and then I ended up being able to get some game time and be an important part of the squad.
Fantastic. Now, just going back to where it all started, where did football start for you?
Football started when I was really young, more so because I've got an older brother. He's 4 years older than me, and I just wanted always to impress him. So whenever he was out in the backyard or going for a kick with his friends, I'd always say, hey, can I come? And he'd be like, no, like, you are no good. Like, you're my little sister. Why would I want you to come and, have a kick with me and my friends, or even just him in the backyard? So I was determined to, start playing so I was good enough, to have a kick with my brother. And through that, he joined a football team when we were younger, and because he joined, I joined, and I was the only girl in an all-boys team. So, the challenges just kept coming.
Which is excellent. And what part did school sport play in your formation?
I got into school sport Victoria a bit later, which I really do regret. I didn't really know about it in my primary school years or even in my early high school years. I did it in year 12, and that was unbelievable. I met kids from all around the state, all around Australia. So being able to find a pool of students around the same age that are so passionate about the sport as well, it was an amazing experience. And like I said, I really am kicking myself that I wasn't informed about it earlier. My school wasn't such a big football school. It was always kind of cricket, netball, basketball, those types of things. So once I got into it, like I said, I was pretty annoyed that it wasn't involved in my life earlier on.
Now, what schools did you go to? Primary school and high school? Which ones did you attend?
So my family's I'm from the southeast. So I went to LePage Primary School in Cheltenham, and then I went to Cheltenham Secondary College in Cheltenham as well. So
Cheltenham Secondary College, pretty big high school, that one, in terms of size and like footprint. But, that obviously championed you in relation. So how did you find out about School Sport Victoria? Obviously, you didn't know about it in primary school, and don't worry, Gulcan, a lot of parents say the same thing, or a lot of kids say, "I wish I'd known about this back then," and we do our best to market it. But how did you find out? What was the breaking point?
I actually just remembered. So with School Sport Victoria, I actually did cross country in year 7 or 8.
Yep.
So that was something that, again, it was more so there was no direct pathway or link because, like I said, we didn't have a football soccer team at my school. So if I was going to play, I couldn't, play on my own. So with that, with being a part of state teams, 14, 15, there was a lot of girls from other schools that were involved saying, "Oh, we're doing, School Sport Victoria. Are you going to be in it?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I wish, but my school doesn't have a team." So as I kind of got older and met people from different areas and different schools, by word of mouth, they educated me on the programs and School Sport Victoria and what they had to offer.
Which is brilliant stuff. Now, just going back to your, school years and looking back on what you know now, what advice would you give to your 12-year-old self, knowing everything you know now?
I'd just say ask questions. Like, if you're passionate about a sport, or even if it's something that you haven't tried before, there's nothing wrong with asking those questions about what opportunities you can have to get involved in that sport, get involved in, competitions. When I first started, I was, like I said, I always did cross country and athletics, and football wasn't really a big part of my life. And I was really fortunate that I had that avenue to find out, that I had talent in other areas. So ask your friends questions, your teachers. If you're part of sporting clubs, there might be people in competitions or in organizations that give you different opportunities and different experiences.
Yeah, and it is interesting that some schools really take off on it and others don't. But obviously, Australian football is pretty high in participation, but football certainly does have some high participation rates. In regard to we saw 54,400 Victorian students take part in and participate in football just in 2019, which was pretty phenomenal. And over the decade, 2010 to 2019, we saw 491,879 students participating. So, the rate, the gender balance is not quite where we want it to be. It's 63 boys and 37% girls. How was it being a girl growing up in Cheltenham and in your area wanting to play football and did you have girls around you that wanted to play, or were you playing with boys?
Within my community, so within the Turkish community, it wasn't common for a young Turkish girl to be playing football. It was more kind of, do dancing, do things around the house. So I didn't have anyone to kind of relate to. So that, as I said, I was playing with the boys, and even that was a shock to our community. Like, what is this girl doing? I wasn't very good when I first started. So it was almost, I got told to quit. I was going to say while I was ahead, but I wasn't really going anywhere at that time. And then through that experience, and again, in Cheltenham, like I said, netball, AFL, all like basketball, tennis, all those sports were kind of leading the way. So as I got older and, like I said, met new people and met new communities, like the next club I played for was Sandringham, and they have a massive support base for females in football. So through that really opened my eyes, and there are people out there. Like, it's crazy. Like, right under your nose, there's a lot of female athletes, but it's just find your way to them and finding a support base that really supports women's sport and can assist in young girls wanting to reach their goals.
Now, my guess is that what you're talking about there is in the Turkish culture. It's very patriarchal in terms of it's a male-dominated, male-oriented kind of culture. Is that right? The men lead the house kind of thing?
Yeah, and it has changed since I was a young girl. It is different now. A lot more families are supportive of females in the family getting in and around sport. I guess it's just education as well. Just being educated that think the thing my mum feared the most is when I'd come home with like a bruise or an injury, she'd say, why do you keep doing this if you keep getting hurt? And it's just educating their families, and that, it's a sport. You can get roughed up a little bit, but there's a lot of positives out of it that there are negatives.
So how did it go with mum, dad, brothers, backing you and you following this pathway to get into elite football? What was it like with that?
Yeah, look, I was, again, very fortunate. My parents were very supportive. When I started making state teams when I was about 13, 14, my dad actually ended up getting a second job to be able to cover the costs involved, because all the trials and the trainings were on the other side of town. So I think it got to a point where my dad realized that I was going to be the successful one in sport and my brother wasn't. So, there was a lot of time and resources put into me. And because my parents are doing that, I was determined to work even harder and make sure I made them proud and made all that time and money and effort worth it.
I'm sure you have made him proud, and that's a very special story. And it's certainly, your father in that story you've just talked about, you wouldn't be alone in that. There's a lot of families that dads take up, extra income to just bring some financial freedom, in a sense, for their young child, their wannabe Lionel Messi, to go on and be bigger and better, because you can't just do it. And, you mentioned you were in Cheltenham. You would have probably been travelling to the city and further for training, right, for the elite pathway. Is that correct?
I was travelling from Cheltenham to Northgate, Darabin International Sports Centre there. And also there's been times where I've had to go to Epping. So, yeah, a good drive. And even with just that, it's like, I remember I didn't get new boots until either I grew out of them or they tore. So there was so many expenses involved with it, and time as well. So I'm really thankful for that.
Well, what a beautiful story. And, generally we sometimes ask elite athletes like yourself, what sacrifices have you had to make? But before we get into that, what sacrifices do you think your mum, your dad, your brother had to make to get you to where you are today? Because that's the kind of thing that sometimes is forgotten. We see the Ash Bartys of this world, but we forget that Ash Bartys had probably a number of hours and a whole stack of cash put behind her to get her to where she is. Yeah.
So my mum worked as well, but she worked night shifts. So then she was able to, look after the household and cook and clean and do everything for my brother, my dad and I. So with my dad, I know that there was a lot of times where he actually had to leave work early to accommodate for, say, I started training at 5 or even at 6, trying to beat the traffic. So he had a lot of tough conversations at work because, management or bosses can only be so lenient. But when you're saying, hey, I need to leave work early every, Monday to Friday because I need to take my daughter to training, there was definitely a toll. And the days that, for instance, I had off, he didn't because he was working the second job. My family, my mum didn't come to as many games as my dad was at every game until I started. But with my mum, she was more worried about if I got hurt. So she knew that if she'd come to the game, she couldn't. She'd probably start bawling her eyes out if I got tackled. Also, her understand, she was always proud of me, but her understanding of football wasn't as great as my dad. So she kind of thought, okay, who am I going to know at the same time, and what am I going to understand? And if someone hurts you, I'm just going to start yelling at them. So
that's special. And mum would have been dad as well would have been very protective of you. But there's slide tackles, there's black eyes, there's sometimes. Have you had to sustain some serious injuries in your career?
So 3 or 4 years ago, I broke my foot. Wow. Which it makes a massive difference when you're a bit older, but when you're younger and definitely depending on your parents, I rolled my ankle a couple of times, tore ligaments, And every time I've come home, my mum said, like, again, like, why are you doing this? And so there's been a few rolled ankles and one broken foot, but other than that, it's been I've been pretty fortunate.
So how did you manage that when you did break your foot? You obviously can't play, so what did you do to recover?
So when I broke my foot, it was actually, I had just started working at Victory full time. So it was the first week I was employed. And that Saturday, I broke my foot and, calling my manager saying, look, I don't think I want to be able to come to work on Monday. Doesn't make you sound very reliable. And also it was done in the last minute of the game I was playing in. So, even worse. And my husband at the time, I actually drove myself to the hospital from Epping. So we were playing at Epping Stadium. So I drove myself to Sandringham Hospital.
Wow.
And we waited, I think, about 6 hours to get the results that I had broken my foot. 4 months out from the start of the W-League season as well. So it was kind of all happening for me. And when the doctor came and said, you've broken your foot, my husband went to high-five me. And I just had tears rolling down my face. And I said, there goes my season. And I've just started work. So it was a pretty devastating time, but look, work was unbelievable. Victory were really accommodating. I wanted to get back to work as soon as I could, so I had my moon boot, had my crutches, went into the office, and then after I had my operation, the club again was very supportive, and I was still signed for Melbourne Victory. So my rehab, my support system, everything I had through Victory for the club was absolutely amazing.
That's so good. And Victory, I mean, we really enjoy, as School Sport Victoria, partnering with Victory, and we have done for a number of years now. I think it's close to 5 years that we've been partnering with Victory, possibly more. But we just love working with yourself and the likes of Tim DeGraaf. I mean, who doesn't love Tim? He's just a legendary guy.
Tim gets the job done, which is good.
That's right. Now, was it a dream come true for you to work at Victory? Because I know Victory is one of the, if not the highest, I think it's the second highest membership base in Australia in terms of the A-League. I can't remember if it is or not, but that is, when kids are growing up, it's every kid's dream to work in the place that they follow, right? Was that a dream for you?
Definitely was. I think I ticked the first box. I know I ticked the first box when I got signed for the club, but working at the club itself was a dream come true. And there's not many opportunities to work at the club, only because when you're in, no one wants to leave. And because there isn't such a big turnover of staff, it is somewhere that is, I guess, hard to get into, more so, like I said, because no one wants to leave. And also I was fortunate enough, I didn't get my job because I was a W-League player. I actually got it because Stella Smith, who was my manager at the time, I volunteered a lot of my time as a W-League player because I love the club so much. In the W-League, our contracts are very different to the A-League players, where there wasn't as many requirements in, I guess, the appearance phase or even with the clinic. So I just said, look, you need someone, tell me where, when, and I'll be there. And I guess proving that I had a passion for the club and the sport, not expecting anything in return, was a massive plus for the club when they were looking to hire someone.
I think you've hit on something really important there, and it's certainly something that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I don't see in young people these days, is that desire to really want to do something for nothing. This is generalizing, of course, this is not every young person, but generally speaking, there is it can be a sense of entitlement. I'm trying to be respectful by saying it, but by volunteering, I think that is really important for you or for people to, because this day and age with the scarcity of work, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And if you are known by someone who is looking to hire, they're going to hire someone who they have a relationship with and they understand better than someone who they've just met in an interview kind of thing. So it's really, that networking is really important.
And that's the same thing with us. We've got volunteers that assist with our programs and other departments. And if there is an opportunity to hire, whether it's casual or full-time, there's always a favor towards the ones that have put that work in for nothing, because it wouldn't be fair. And also they know what the club's about. There's a lot of people that do volunteer that are purely doing it for the love of the game and for the love of the club, and that's really important.
It is, and finding that love is really important. How do you reconcile the idea that you do have 2 degrees and at the moment you're not working in that realm, exercise science and sport and rec management?
So with my degree, the management side, like sport and rec management, has come really in handy with, I guess, the administration side of the programs that we run. The exercise science side, it was kind of, do I do a single degree or a double? Why don't I just do it for the sake of it? And then as my sport got to a professional level, I saw all the work that the exercise scientists did, and I was like, no, I still want to play. I don't have that time to give up to put towards exercise science. So through my playing, it actually gave me a background or an insight to what is done, and it just made me realize that more so the coaching and the events and planning, that side of thing, was more my passion.
That's so good. And what is, if you were to sort of throw caution to the wind, what would be a dream job for you? What would be the thing that you would love to do the most?
I don't know if it's going to sound corny, but what I'm doing right now, the work that Tim and I do in the community department of history, it's honestly it's so rewarding. There's times where we kind of think, when can I take a breath? But when we do run those programs and seeing the impact it has and the impact that football can have on a child, on a team, on a community, nothing can compare. And until you've experienced that, people might say, oh, how can that be your dream job? But honestly, I could do that every day for the rest of my life and be content about the progress and the impact that I'm making.
Well, I mean, I have the privilege of knowing exactly what you guys do and working a bit with you guys. And without going into too much detail, because I'll be frankly honest, I reckon I could talk about your role and Tim's role and what you do for hours without stopping, because I love what you do. Just tell us a little bit about the story. You don't need to mention names, but I would imagine people like Deng who've come through. You've found them in a little program and they're now playing with Victory. Talk us through those kinds of stories, because they're the ones that I don't know that the community know about, the community arm of what Victory do.
Yep. So Thomas Deng actually came from one of our Club Victory clubs. So we have a program, it's called our Club Victory program, where we work with local clubs within the community. And he himself, having had challenges along the way to get his professional contracts, understands how important it is to have that support within the community, or having clubs that have the resources assist those clubs. And he honestly, such a great guy, great footballer, and also he's one that gives back to his community and the community, and that. It's hard to kind of describe and put words to it, because he's one of a kind. And when those players that have come from, say, little and achieved so much give back to people that are in those same positions, it gives hope and it allows people to think that, look, I've got a dream, and if he's been able to do it, I can do it too.
Absolutely. That hope that you talked about is exactly what, because what you're describing is you work with a variety of people, but generally speaking, there are some that English is not their first language, that finance is not, they don't have money growing on trees, they don't have a great deal of finance, they're working 2-3 jobs to just survive. So when you've got a talent like Deng, and Deng is one of many that we could talk about, you see this kid, he's got the potential, but it's hard to stomach that you can see a kid with so much character and potential, but know that they may not make it based purely on their circumstances. And that, to me, is grossly unfair.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And a big thing with him as well is he hasn't forgotten where he's come from. He hasn't forgotten what family and what community he's still a part of. He hasn't forgotten about the clubs previously in his junior years that have supported him to get to where he is. So
Yeah.
he's a very humble person, and in all honesty, we need more like him. If players like him have the opportunity, if kids like him in the community have the opportunity, we could have not only great footballers but great people playing this sport.
Fantastic. Now, what I mean, we'll talk about sacrifice in a second, but if there was someone listening or tuning in later who's a young kid like Deng, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy or even a girl, what would you say to them if they had this desire to represent Australia or represent their country or play for Victory one day, but didn't have the backing? What advice would you give them?
Well, it honestly just depends on how much they want it. Even if they may not have the opportunity to play at the highest level or have, play at the biggest teams in Victoria at the moment, it's how much effort you're putting with what you're capable of. So, like I said, my family didn't have a lot of money, but I had a soccer ball. I was in the backyard hitting against a brick wall. A couple of times hit the window. My mum wasn't very happy, but I was determined to be the best possible player I could be with the resources that I had. I wasn't making up excuses of, I don't have the best boots or the most expensive equipment. I was making do with what I had. Like me and my brother, we used to play in the backyard with chairs. So the goals, the bottom of the chairs, the four legs were the goals. So that's how we utilize what we had. So it's, if they've got a dream, in all honesty, the only thing stopping them at this point in time, if they're 12 or 13, is themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, good work. Now, what sacrifice have you had to make to get to where you are today?
So I guess a big one would be the social aspect of my life. So going to birthday parties, schoolies, going out, all of those things. Look, to me, it didn't seem like a loss because I loved football so much. So that sacrifice was really easy for me to make. I guess income, when I first started getting jobs outside of football, so working in retail or fast food, I was always unavailable for shifts. So assisting my family in regards to paying my way through football was difficult. And it was really hard to not be able to contribute. And also with my education, it was difficult. I preferred a semester. I did less subjects in uni. So my education side of things went for a lot longer than what I would have wanted it to go for. But I got to where I wanted to be in the end. There was a bit more of a process.
I mean, to balance elite football and academic education is not easy to do. Like, if you've done exercise science, let's face it, you're a bright spark as well. You obviously got a good ATAR score to get into those kinds of things. How did you balance the two? How was that hard during your high schooling years, your senior years?
Yeah, so it's funny you say good ATAR. I probably didn't get a good ATAR.
I'm trying to butter you up.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. And look, like I said, it was a longer journey. So in year 12, I was so sports driven that going back, I would have chose to be a bit smarter about it and balance it a bit better. I ended up doing a diploma for 2 years after high school. So I did a diploma of sports development at BU, and then that led me into my double degree. So it was a longer path, but I made, like you said before, networking, and I made a lot of friends, and there's a lot of people that I have met through that process. So again, balancing it, there's days where I had training, then I had uni, or I had uni, then training, or I had work, uni, training. So I wanted it so bad that I made it work. It was exhausting, but it worked.
I mean, you talk about it being a longer path, but it's an important path too, because so often we talked about this last week and the week before. So often we try and push kids into an academic mold of they must do ATAR, they must get a good score. But there are so many more options, and the options you took, even though in your words it's a little bit longer, you actually found a love for what you love to do. And when you love what you're doing and what you're studying, you put so much more effort into it. There's a lot more that passion that goes into your study.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, doing the Diploma of Sport Development actually opened my eyes to how important sport is and the phases in regards to, I guess, educating yourself and educating others in different fields and in different sports. And also, I was able to have different experiences that I wouldn't have had if I went straight into my uni course and was doing that. It made me a lot more passionate to get into that uni course through the 2 years in between year 12 and starting that double degree. And yeah, it was definitely a path that I was thankful that I took.
Which is fantastic. Now, you talked a little bit about, what's happening for you now. Take us through a typical week of training when you were signed and playing with Victory. What would a typical week look like for you?
So a typical week would have been Monday to Friday in the office, and every day, so after 5 o'clock, I'd go to training Monday to Friday. So it was, wake up at 7 and probably get home at 9, 10 o'clock. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty long days. And depending on if I had programs out of the office, it would be, say, go to the program and then go to training. And then on the weekends, it was either I was playing a game or we'd have an event on. So if I wasn't playing, so pretty much I had football related things Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday.
That would have been very tough to manage all of that and manage the recovery, because recovery is very important for anyone who's an elite athlete as well. What was it like playing for the national team, the Turkish national team, and how long did you play for them for?
Yeah, so I played for Turkey for 3 years, and at that time, so I was also playing for Victory, also playing MPL, had a job, and was studying my double degree. So
Wow.
I was flying to Turkey every 2 weeks for 3 years. So I'd go for 2 weeks, come back for 2 weeks, go for
No
2
way.
weeks. Yeah, and
So, just to help others understand, I thought the Turkish, the overseas season is different to the Victory season. Am I right or wrong?
it crosses over to an extent only because there's World Cup qualifiers and then there's European qualifiers as well as friendlies. So yeah, there was a lot going on, and it was crazy because some of the qualifiers actually crossed over with the W-League season, and that was where I was at my peak because I was training with the national team, training with Victory, and it hurt me a little bit to miss games in the W-League because it's amazing playing for Turkey, and that's obviously the priority. But you do the preseason for Victory, and it's only a 14-round season, and you miss 2 games, and then when you come back, you're out of the squad. And so yeah, it was a crazy time and a crazy ordeal of you want to play all the games, but a 19-hour flight up and a 19-hour flight back, you're missing a lot in between.
Well, exactly. And, what some may not understand, because that sounds exciting. You're getting on the plane every 2 weeks, playing for a national team, you're working full time, you're playing for Victory. It's like Dreamsville all over. But there would be an element that was tough, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to guess that there wasn't a great deal of finance that was coming for you as a female player. It's no surprise to anyone that there is inequality with males and females in any sport across Australia right now, or even across the world, actually. So how did you financially keep up with everything?
I was more so in negatives during that time. They covered my flights, which was amazing because that was $2,500 to $3,000 each time I went up flying international. And we only got paid for away games. So I only got paid if we were playing. So when we played England, for instance, if we went to England, we'd get paid for the days that we were outside of Turkey. But when we're in Turkey, because for the locals, there wasn't really a travel cost, their flight would get covered, but there wasn't as much of a discrepancy of being out of the country. And look, I was still fortunate that because I was signed at Victory when it crossed over, I was still getting my player wage then. But again, the currency rate in Europe compared to here as well, and wanting to buy certain things, and every time I'd come back with gifts for my family, so I'd always financially it was difficult.
Yeah, it would have been, and it still is. Like, I don't know if you've got KO or not, but KO has a fantastic 6-part series at the moment called Call My Name. And I don't know if you've watched it or not, but it does interview Australian athletes. And Liz Cambage is interviewed, and she talks about the fact that she played for the NBL as a basketball. She talked about the fact that NBA players would fly premium business, and NBL players, males would fly premium business and females would fly economy. And when it got leaked to the media, she admitted it. She says it on there. She said, I leaked it to the media. I'm the one who pushed it because I don't like that, and I'm trying to push more equality. And now they actually do fly the girls premium business. So it is a bit of a shame that there's so much of a drive and a push that's needed for this, because it just seems so it just seems silly that we're even having these conversations in 2020.
Well, it's the same, like I said, with when I was talking about the cultural barriers and the differences when I was younger. It changes because my family lives in Australia, so there's still a lot of change needing to be done back in Turkey. So that itself, the differences, like I'd talk about things that we did here in regard to like physios, games, what we got, and then I'd go back to Turkey and talk about it, and they're like, how do you get that? How do you have that support?
Wow.
So the differences going from one nation to the other, it's almost like not only is the language, like I can speak Turkish, so I was fortunate, but there's still the language differences when you're on the pitch, like how you're speaking to each other, the different calls, the different positions. That was tough enough, but also being used to, for Victory, it's if you need a massage or if you need treatment, you talk to the physio, you get it, whereas there it was assigned, and it was only specific people that would get it if they're injured, or there's just there were so many differences that itself, the cultural shock going from one nation to the other was also something, as well as the jet lag, many things to kind of get used to.
Well, I had no idea about this story, but I was just about to say the same thing, that you have to manage jet lag, you have to manage finances, cultural difference, because I'm guessing in Turkey you wouldn't have been speaking English, you would have been shouting at your teammates and they would have been shouting at you in Turkey, which probably meant that when you came back to Victory, you caught yourself speaking Turkish sometimes to your friends. Did that happen? Did you slip up and think, hang on, I'm not in Turkey right now?
Look, I didn't slip up when I came back. I think it was more there was opportunities on whilst I was playing, or things I didn't react to quick enough because I hadn't adapted to the communication and the wording that was used when I was playing. So that probably did hinder my performance a little bit. And also, like you were talking about recovery, there's so many different processes that were done at Melbourne Victory or in Australia compared to the processes that were done in Turkey. So there was a lot of adapting to kind of do.
But even being on a flight for that long, it's not good for the body. It's not good for someone who probably covers conservatively. I reckon you'd cover about 5 kilometres a game, roughly. I don't know what the GPS says, but when you're running around as a you were a forward striker, right?
I was a fullback for Turkey, and then for Victory, played every position possible.
I mean, that in a sense is crazy that you would come back and be in a different position itself, but it's just not good for the legs that way. What would you say to a young girl who was 12 years old now, and maybe even Turkish as well, wanting to represent her country? What advice would you give to her?
I would say, I guess the hard thing is as well, it's if they don't have the support of their family, because I have come across conservative communities where they say to me, you're living the dream that I would want to, like everything that you did when you're my age, I can't do because I don't have the support of my family, and it's not, I guess it's not normal to do, like using, I guess I'm using that word loosely, like a normal thing within their family. I guess it would just be having those conversations with your parents, and if they think it's going to be an issue and clash with other things, proving to them that you're going to be respectful and try and keep the promises of worrying about school as well, and sharing that load. So it just has to be an honest and open conversation. If you don't have that support, telling your parents why it means so much to you. And if you do have that support, like I said, I had 2 years of busting my gut to get to playing for Victory. So if you believe in yourself and you've got that support as well, honestly, nothing can stop you.
I mean, that makes, knowing what I know now, just by learning it from this very short conversation we've had, that makes that 2 years even more unbelievable, because there would have been, I'm guessing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, there would have been a drive in you to want to show mum and dad, your culture, men, that you can do this. But because you weren't being selected, that was hard, right?
Oh, it was definitely hard. And it's funny because when I first started playing, there was a lot of people telling me that I should give up. Well, it wasn't my family. Like, my family always supported me, but there was a lot of male coaches or teammates that said, you shouldn't be playing. And now that I've achieved everything I've achieved, they say, we taught her everything she knows, or she got to where she is because she was playing at our club, or we were coaching her, or all those things. So it's really intriguing how it can flip so quickly when you're successful and doing well, whereas if it's the opposite, it seems like you have more enemies than you have supporters and fans.
Well, that's tough to have people say that to you, but I understand. And what you were talking about with the hypothetical 12-year-old Turkish girl is, you weren't talking about circumstance in terms of finance. You were talking about potentially the culture and the upbringing and the mindset being a hindrance to that girl, not just for football, but going on to any sport, right? Yeah. Now, look, you do, as I said, some amazing stuff at Victory. What's next for you? Like, where, short term and long term, what do you want to, and it doesn't need to be sport related, it can be anything. What do you want to do?
Well, for me, playing's I've achieved everything that I believe that I can. Turning 30 this year, so I want to focus more on the community side of things and help those 12-year-old Turkish girls, or those 12-year-old boys, or any young kids within the community, that they use football as either a tool to get away or to get active, have fun, make friends. I want to continue providing them with support and opportunities to do that, because again, there's so many people working in the elite space and they don't need any more support. It's the kids that don't have the opportunities, the communities that don't have the opportunities, that need more programs that we're providing, or more people like myself and Tim to assist them in that.
That's pretty exciting. And look, you're only newly married, not very long now. How long's it been now?
February. So yeah, pretty new.
Very, very newly married. So, don't want to push this on you, but I'm sure that if you are blessed, you and your husband are blessed with kids, and you have a little girl or a little boy, you are going to be pushing them to be whatever they want to be. And that's really exciting for you and for the future of your family.
Well, the funny thing is, I'll give you the spiel on this live feed that I actually am pregnant and I'm due in February. So,
oh my gosh.
Many people know. So you heard it first here.
So February would make you 14 weeks?
No, I'm actually about 24 weeks.
24 weeks, sorry, I miscalculated.
Yeah, so
24 weeks. That's exciting.
Months. Yeah.
That is so exciting. Well, congratulations to you and your husband. I'm sure he is over the moon, and whether it's a boy or a girl, you'll both be very excited, and we'll have little Genitsaris, as I don't even know how to say last name, running around playing soccer.
Oh, look, we'll see how we go. Look, obviously, I'm a bit biased towards the football side of things, but as long as they're enjoying what they're doing and have that support from myself and my husband, and they're healthy, that's the main thing. But again, yes, I will definitely be biased towards them playing football.
That's so good, so good. We've loved having you on the show and getting to know you a little bit more, and also getting to know what you do and Tim does at Victory. We certainly, I'm speaking on behalf of SSV now, that we love partnering with you, and we hope to continue working with you in the near future and the very long-term future as well, and work with your community sport. And we're excited by the direction that Victory's going with Ian at the helm and the new staff you've got coming on. It's pretty exciting times for Victory, and December 27, the A-League kicks off again, so that's exciting in itself. I mean, I'm personally excited by that.
Oh, no, I'm excited too. The W-League and the A-League are kicking off on the same day, so it's very exciting.
It is, and without going into this too much, obviously the season that wasn't the greatest for various reasons, COVID, and they just didn't play their best. But the last 4 games, and I've said this to Tim a few times, if the last 4 games are anything to go by, the next season is super exciting. And I think that's why, I won't say the figures because I don't know if I'm supposed to know, but I think that's why you guys are experiencing some really good membership numbers right now. And that's exciting times for you guys moving forward. So hopefully more members join on the Victory bandwagon and get involved. And December 27 is exciting.
Yeah, it's really Rebs and Jeff, our W-League coach, are doing a great job with the recruiting process. So and they're fantastic coaches and people. So I'm really excited for December 27, like you are, and can't wait to have all the fans supporting as well. Because in all honesty, not only do the players and the staff make the club what it is, but our fans are the ones that also add what amazing family vibe we've got.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And it is exciting. The signings are exciting. Look, go well. We are really excited, and we'll continue to work with you, and we're excited by your pregnancy. That is fantastic. And we'll look forward to meeting your child one day.
Yeah, I honestly, thanks so much for your time, Raf, and I look forward to, I guess, what the future's going to bring now that lockdown's over, so all restrictions have eased.
Very good. Thanks heaps.
All right. See ya.